final area. Away the Nixie team away. Away the Nixie team away. Set general quarters. Set general quarters. General quarters, all hands, lay battle station. General quarters, all hands, lay battle station.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. We're having a disagreement with Clint. I'll be turning that around. Clint and BZ are going to tear through the gristle of today's screaming headlines and rip out the sinewy tendons of truth ensconced within, all from the hoary streets of Sacramento, Fornicalia, exposing the trembling toadies, the sniveling jackanapes, and fripperous fopdoodles infesting altogether too many of the great nation of ours. Please feel free to partake of our chat room at shrmedia.com. And featuring right over there the effervescent and contrarian Heads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of the Zeppmeister. I'll have to figure out where that is.
Yeah.
Doubling your late-night conservative talk radio pleasure and doubling the host. Some contents, by the way, may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, Terracross dotted line, Hecho in Mexico, patent pending, warranty void in Montenegro. Tonight, Clint and BZ are going to talk. Oh, now, okay. I'm not even going to go there. Okay, so, let's. Jesus, would you stop? Okay. Now, for those of you, let me do a little splaining around here. Lucy, you got some splaining to do. Okay, it goes like this. Well, number one, thanks for Alaskan being in chat. Thanks for Mike for being in chat. All right, we have a new studio set up, and for those of you who have been watching the show, you already know that. By the way, why did you push it further that way? I'm
because that way
curious.
you can't see our shelf of doom.
Oh, well, that's okay. Boy. Okay, so it was, the studio setup was okay for Tuesday night. It was okay for last Thursday night. We were not on last Wednesday night.
Correct.
And it was okay for the previous Tuesday night.
Correct.
But now you walk in here and you don't like the angle of
my camera.
The camera.
My camera.
Your camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your camera's great. My camera.
Well, you pushed my camera.
I pushed it like
even further, like over to the.
I pushed it like 1/4 of an inch.
You're so funny.
It was like 1/4 of an inch. Here, watch. I'll push it back. There you go.
Okay. All right. You know, I do feel better.
This camera, I don't like that camera.
Okay. Great finger, by the way.
Yeah, I don't.
Clint.
That camera, I don't
Clint
like.
gives great finger.
I do. You can ask almost anybody that's had finger.
All right. Well, anyway, I guess we're gonna have to roll with that for tonight until.
No, I'm gonna on the break. If you cut that camera, I can potentially fix it.
You know.
I'm going to mount it on my head. So we're going to do a perspective shot.
I think that there's a backup mount that I don't know. The Alaskan says, "Stop touching me." All right. Maybe during the bottom of the hour break, we got 5 minutes. Maybe I can see if I can move that camera like you were talking about to maybe right there.
Yeah.
And then it'll
if
do
you
a
cut that
face
camera,
on.
if you cut that camera off, I will mess with it while we talk.
Well, there's a mount around the corner over there that I could give you that's on one of the trays that you might be able to fiddle with. But it's going to take at least a good 5 minutes. We can do that at the bottom of the hour break. Let me explain a few things, though.
Yeah.
Because some other stuff has occurred during the day, and for those of you who may be on Facebook and wondering why...
There you go.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. And wondering what the hell happened to our promos for today, to the best of my knowledge, Facebook is down. And CBS News now says, by the way, the exact same stuff that I already knew. Oh, yeah, Facebook is down. So we are not simulcasting on Redcon 1. We are not on the Facebook page. So there are two places now to absorb the buttery goodness that is the chat show. And one of them, of course, is at shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, and I'm looking at the people in chat, so thanks for being in there. So you can listen and chat in the chat room at shrmedia.com. And then you can also go to the SHR Media YouTube channel, and you can, or excuse me, yeah, that's right, the YouTube channel.
Yes.
And watch us there. Not like you're going to be seeing a hell of a lot. You've got, let's see, if you're watching on the SHR Media YouTube channel, you've got me pointing at the camera on the left, and then you've got my bank of computer screens over on the right because Sackheads Clint doesn't like his camera angle. All right, anyway.
I'm a diva.
Kind of.
I'm a diva.
Okay, kind of.
Yeah.
All right, so Facebook is down, and that's why we're not on Facebook tonight. When it's going to come back up. By the way, if anybody... okay, I was just going to ask this question. Alaskan in chat just said, my Facebook seems to be working. Well, some people have told me that Messenger is apparently working.
There, the cat is Sackhead Clint.
Did you? Oh, yeah, there's... Okay, if too bad Whiskey Dale isn't here because Clyde, Clyde the Bobcat now, who is in the saloon, is clearly visible on screen number 2. So, Clint, should I just say screw it and move over and I'll take the whole damn page? Or,
yes.
Or we should just... We'll leave it like that and let Clyde
No,
be
take
there.
the whole page.
I've been trying to get Clyde.
I've been trying to give you the cut the camera signal, but once your headphones go on, you cease to communicate anywhere other than through the microphone.
Imagine that.
I know, but like I can look at you and I can just be like I can give you clear cut the micro, and you just look at me with this glazed look on your face unless I say it into this and it comes into here.
That's right. Now you, there you go. You get it. Now you understand.
Or on a break when the headphones come off.
And then I can actually hear you.
Yes.
Not necessarily through the microphone.
Right.
Funny how that works.
Yes.
Okay, so I can click this tab off. Facebook
Yes.
is done. Facebook is toast. Now we have some very interesting news tonight to start the show about hacking, and Sackheads Clint brought this to my attention. First, though, I want to go here from the Navy Times. Oh, wait a minute! What are we doing? Jesus Christ! Why didn't you tell me or slap me or something like that? I don't want to start off the show immediately with serious crap.
Yeah.
Do I?
No.
Come on! Why didn't you just say, BZ, what are you doing? Starting off with serious stuff. And you could have said, BZ, I understand why you're talking about Facebook. Because we're on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't understand is where and how you took that jump from Facebook and then went right into serious crap, which is not what we do.
But I do understand, right? Because you have a bunch of crap floating up in your head. And as something flows by your frontal cortex, you reach up and you grab it.
I do.
And then you talk about it.
Okay. Speaking of which,
yes.
Now this is not serious stuff. I want to again say thank you to Sackheads Clint.
Yes, you're welcome.
I do not get money from this, but Sackheads Clint happens to know my favorite poison that I drink right here. And so this sound is for Sackheads Clint. The opening of the ceremonial Diet Pepsi.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much to Sackheads Clint for doing that for me.
You are
I
welcome.
always appreciate that.
You are welcome.
So let me Kalmate. Namaste.
Yes.
Namaste.
Yes.
So, do we have any Clint stories?
None that I can share.
Oh, damn it, Jim.
None that I can share. But I can tell you, last week I was not here. I was in San Diego.
Okay.
Work. It wasn't pleasure. It was.
But see, San Diego, we know what San Diego is here on the left coast. Mm-hmm. For those people who don't, San Diego is this little bit of, I guess you could call it paradise. What people don't know is that San Diego temperature almost never changes.
Mm-hmm.
It's customarily, even in the summer, it might get 80.
Maybe.
Yeah. It's customarily 70. It might get as low as 65.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in the winter.
Maybe.
But San Diego is one of these strange places where funny stuff happens, and it's just like beautiful all the time. Okay, it may rain a couple of times. Have you ever been rained on in San Diego?
Oh yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
I have not.
I go down to San Diego a lot.
Okay.
And so I'm in San Diego.
So they do get rain.
They do get rain. I'm in San Diego several times a year.
Okay.
And yeah, so I have been rained on.
I want to get your input on this too.
Oh.
Okay. When I went to SLI in 2006, you had to go there for like month after month after month, and so that's when I took Southwest and kept flying down there at least twice a month. For 6 months, I did that. So I got to know Lindbergh Field. Lindbergh is the field into which you fly if you go into San Diego. But flying into Lindbergh is an experience that, unless you've done it, can be a little concerning, and especially if you're a shitty flyer. And even before the engines spool up, there are indentation marks from your fingers in your armrests of the seat, meaning you're not a really good flyer. Then flying into Lindbergh is going to be similar to your worst nightmare. Let me describe. When you're in a 737 in Southwest, and we'll get to the 737 story, when you're in a 737, because that's all that Southwest has, they have one model of aircraft. Period.
Smart business.
And that was extremely smart on PSA. Or they were formerly PSA. Now they're Southwest.
Very smart.
But they only have one model, and that reduces maintenance, purchasing, upgrading, etc. I mean, that really
their mechanics
streamlines
know their aircraft.
everything.
It's not like, one mechanic is, which one is this and which one is this, and nope.
Like Delta has 5 or 6 or 7 different variants of aircraft that they fly. Southwest has one 737. So 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in a 737 coming into Lindbergh in San Diego. And the cool thing about San Diego is no matter where you are, you know where you are in San Diego. For this reason, let's see. The ocean is on the west side, and the big-ass mountains are on the east side. And by looking either east or west, you're going to know where you are in San Diego all the time. But because of these mountains, when you fly into Lindbergh, when you come in for landing, you are landing east to west. What that means is you come over the mountains to land land at Lindbergh Field, which is right next to a Marine base, and they have an additional runway right next to it, and that's kind of active. But you're landing east to west over these mountains, and the pilot has to drop the nose down pretty seriously to begin the flare for the landing at Lindbergh. As you're coming into Lindbergh, the cool thing is if you look out the port or left side of the aircraft, and specifically if you happen to be sitting on the left side of the aircraft, and more specifically if you happen to be sitting in a window seat, at one point when you're landing, you're looking out the window and you're probably a couple of 100 feet from big office buildings, and people in these office buildings are looking at you, looking at them as you're landing in the plane. That's kind of disconcerting. But I've done it so many times, I think it's just way cool.
Oh, I think it's great. So there's a couple things about a couple different airports in Southern California. One is San Diego, and we're landing in going into San Diego for a couple reasons. First of all, when you're coming in, you can oftentimes, if the carriers are in port, you can oftentimes see them.
Oh, right, and you can see the Coronado Bridge.
Of the Pacific Fleet. So you come over and you're looking over, it's called the Gas Lamp District, and I think it's Petco Field where the Padres play. Right there on the waterfront. It's beautiful, but when the carriers are in, it's cool because there could be the Reagan is there.
The Nimitz? Is the Nimitz or the Ford?
No, it's the I think the Carter and Ford and Reagan, I believe.
Okay.
I know the Reagan is
Reagan
out there.
That's all I know.
So I have always seen an aircraft carrier in port every time I've gone in, except this time the Essex was in, but the Essex is an amphibious assault ship, so it's a carrier. It's smaller. It's a baby carrier.
Yeah.
All the carriers were gone, which I thought was interesting.
Imagine
First time I've ever seen that. But anyway, so. Yeah, flying into San Diego and seeing those right by the office building stuff is pretty cool.
I love doing that.
I think is it Ontario, where when you're taking off because of the noise abatement, they power up and it's almost straight damn up like you're in a combat zone. It's pretty freaking awesome. And then they cut the power to the engines.
Power down,
and you continue to arc up for a little bit. And then you kind of level off, and right before you start to come down again, they kick the engines and they power the engines back up, and it picks you up again. And it's because the people that bought houses right by the airport, they didn't realize it was going to be loud. The airport was there first.
Yeah, isn't that funny how every airport that gets bitched at was there
first
many years before they started building these houses.
Yes.
All these numerous subdivisions, and all of a sudden, magically, they're offended because aircraft engines are loud.
Yes. So in and I think it's isn't it Ontario? It's like you're in a freaking combat zone. It's and then you're like, holy shit, am I weightless?
That's right.
And then it picks you back up again.
It's like being in one of the like a C-135 where they do these arcs to make you weightless for a while.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it is Ontario.
I think it is, but it's pretty cool. There's some cool little airports, but LAX is an absolute crap hole.
Oh, LAX is a turd ball.
Stay away from LAX. But San Diego's a really cool place to visit, to spend some time. Some great bars down there if you're into drinking. I kind of am. I didn't have the opportunity to do that this time. It was literally a down and back, so I didn't get to spend any time there really.
And folks, if you do go to San Diego, you have to go to the waterfront area, which is adjacent, I think, Old Town, not far from Old Town.
Right.
And they've got a whole bunch of ships there. They've got, all right, what's the aircraft carrier? Midway.
Which one? The Midway is really cool.
They've got the Midway dock there.
They've also got the barbecue joint kind of down a ways a little bit on that same strip. That was the jukebox scene in Top Gun was filmed there.
Oh, okay. Did not know that.
Yeah, the barbecue place. It was good barbecue, too, but it's a little claim to fame right there. It's filmed right there in that spot.
The Midway tour, if you go to the Midway, is excellent. It's really great. Got a ton of aircraft on the deck. You can go up onto the bridge. You can do a ton of stuff on the Midway. And then right next to it, well, not far from it, is an Akula-class Russian submarine from the 1980s. And if you go to San Diego and if you have any interest in history whatsoever, go take a walk in that submarine. I cannot remember the name of the submarine.
There's a maritime museum there, and you can get to, there's several ships that
you can get a whole bunch of different things.
Star of India there.
Yes, the Star of India. The sailing ship is there. There's a big ferry, Ferry. Okay, smart asses. I know what you were doing. So that's there as well. But for God's sakes, get on the Russian submarine, because the Russian submarine is really cool. And because it's a diesel electric, so you don't have to worry about glowing when you exit. But walking to that submarine is kind of like walking into the World War II submarine, the USS Pompanito, which is in San Francisco.
And the Bowfin, too, which is in Pearl Harbor.
And the Bowfin, yes, which you mentioned, is in Pearl Harbor, because they're both cramped as hell, but this is allegedly a 1970s, still operating up to the 1980s, Russian diesel-electric submarine. And if you look at the hull plates and whatnot, the first thing I thought about myself when looking at the hull plates was, how many fucking vodkas did these guys have to nail this shit together? Because it doesn't look really well done to me.
Right, and why did they use nails? Right?
So you go.
Shouldn't they weld it?
Yeah, that's the first thing I was thinking. And then on every submarine, the other question.
This submarine needs doorknob.
Yes, it does.
What?
Right next to a screen door. Moose and squirrel. So when you go into the interior of this thing, it looks and feels like you're walking into a U.S. World War II submarine. That's how kind of ancient. There's wood in the wardroom. There's wood in the captain's cabin. Of course, all this stuff is really small, really cramped. But the first thing that I remembered going into the Russian submarine is, this is like walking into an American World War II submarine. Except for...
This is a Cold War submarine.
Except that this is a Cold War submarine, and you still have some torpedoes in there, and it's a little bit bigger than the Pompanito, and it has more bad stuff that goes boom. The torpedo rooms fore and aft are way cool. Anyway, you got to go see the Russian submarine if you go to San Diego. And also, and Old Town is really good. If you don't like Mexican food, you're way screwed if you go to Old Town. A ton of it there.
Look, if you don't like Mexican food, you're way screwed if you go to San Diego.
If you go to San Diego.
I mean, the best Mexican food by far. But the cool thing about the Midway is if you're military or prior military, or law enforcement, or I don't know if fire guys or not get on there. But if you're one of those things on, you can get on for free.
Yes, and I did. Anyway, great tour, great ship. The next thing I'd love to do if I could, because I've only seen photographs, and maybe you have. I would love to get on one of our World War II battleships. I think we have 3 stationary battleships left.
One in California. So there is one in San Diego, or one in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, okay.
So if you can get on a battleship, I would recommend going on the Missouri.
But the fire control centers of those things.
Have you been on the Missouri?
No, I've just seen pictures where the thickness of the walls surrounding fire control and surrounding the place where they fire the guns in the turrets, the 16-inch guns.
So let me say this: I've been on the Missouri several times, and everybody that listens to the show knows that my family came from Hawaii. My family, Pearl Harbor survivors. My whole family was there during the attack on Pearl Harbor from different perspectives. I spent a lot of time in Hawaii, particularly as a kid, and so. I've been to the Missouri several times. Missouri wasn't there when I was a lot younger. Came there since. But the cool thing about the Missouri is a couple things. Number one, you don't realize it. So it's moored on Battleship Row, on what was Battleship Row, along Ford Island, which was attacked on December 7th, 1941. So to go visit Missouri, you're coming onto an active military installation. So
you have to take the little boat to go across the harbor to get to Ford Island, right?
Well, no. Yes and no. So you take the boat over to go see the Arizona, and it's an active Navy boat that takes the tourists over. It's active Navy people that crew the ship, or that crew the boat. But to go over to the Missouri, you have to jump on a bus, and you actually have to go onto the active portion of the base. And there's a house there on Ford Island that presidents stay in when they visit Hawaii. Obama didn't; he had another place there. But I think the last president to stay there was George Bush. And you drive right by this house, up on a hill, military housing, but it's still beautiful. And then you kind of make this left turn after you go through. But they stop you at the gate and they ask no cameras. You can't take cameras when you're on this bridge that goes across. Like, they will literally stop you, because the bridge is one of the few in the world that actually goes down under the water to let ships pass, and it is a 100% security concern. So they will stop you
under the bridge.
The bridge goes under the water.
Excuse me, the bridge goes under the water.
Yes. So they will 100% stop you and take your camera.
I did not know that.
If you take any pictures on that bridge, they tell you can't go on with bags. You have to leave any bags you have at the visitor center. They do an inspection on the bus before you drive over to Ford Island. It's still active.
Okay, wait a minute. Are you saying that you cannot take cameras if you go to the battleship?
You can take cameras, but you can't take pictures on the bridge.
Okay, so there's somebody sitting there watching you like a hawk to see what you do with your hands if you're taking a camera out, or a phone, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so you don't think there is, because there's nothing on the bridge, but they have some surveillance technology in place where they will absolutely stop a tour bus if somebody takes a picture with their cell phone out the window or something like that. 100%. So you go on to Ford Island. There's a couple cool things on Ford Island. There's the Pacific Aviation Museum.
Well, that'd be cool.
Which is really cool on Ford Island. And then you have the big red and white tower that you see on a lot of the videos and in movies and so forth. It looks like an air control tower. It was actually there. It's in a lot of the famous pictures. December 7th on Pearl Harbor, it was there. But it's actually a dive tower. It fills with water, and it's made for deep diving for the pressure and so forth.
Oh, okay. For the divers that wear the helmets that do underwater repair, welding, that kind of thing?
Yep.
Okay.
So it is a deep, it's simulated. I forget how tall, 300 feet. Or don't quote me on that. I'm guessing. I'm throwing a number out. I don't know how tall it is, but it's tall enough to simulate obviously a lot of pressure and a lot of depth. So you can see the Air Museum, which is out by that tower. And then you go out on and you can go to the Missouri. And the Missouri's on Battleship Row, and it's moored right in front of the Arizona. So you have the beginning of the war and the end of the war. And the Missouri's guns are facing over the Arizona as kind of like a salute, and also standing guard over the Arizona. The Arizona is a tomb. There are about 1,000 soldiers on
still
it.
People.
And if somebody was a survivor and an Arizona crewman, they are authorized by act of Congress to be buried and interned in the Arizona when they die.
Really?
Yep. The only people who can. It is a cemetery.
Holy.
So if they were a member of the Arizona crew serving on December 7th, 1941, they can choose at the government's expense to be cremated, interned, and then to be lowered and placed into the Arizona to be laid to rest with the rest of their crewmates. And if you can, I think you can find YouTube video on one of those ceremonies, but it's actually pretty. It's pretty impressive.
That's heavy just to hear about.
So the Missouri overlooks the Arizona, and the perspective's really cool. And you can do a whole tour of the ship. And what's amazing about it, they don't tell you this, but those turrets are held on by gravity. Those turrets, so it's a different class battleship. So the Arizona was, I mean, those were World War I era battleships.
Correct.
Those were dreadnought-style battleships. The Missouri, of which I believe was an Iowa class, and the Iowa is the battleship that's in San Diego. But the cool thing about in Los Angeles, the cool thing about the Missouri is the Missouri served from World War II, and I'll get more into that here in a second, all the way up through and up including the Gulf War.
Yes, I remember it served during Vietnam, and it served in 1991.
I believe it served in Korea. I believed it served in Vietnam. It served in the Gulf War, and it's actually fired its guns in anger for all of those things. But there's the Missouri
trivia.
Yeah,
trivia. I think you're gonna know. How was it that we were able to bring back the Missouri for Vietnam? And how was it that we were able to bring back the Missouri for the Gulf War? There was one very specific thing that we found
for bombardment on ground targets while our troops actually took positions, took ground positions. So there's those guns to attack targets on ground and on land and shell those positions while our Marines and so forth actually took positions on the land. And that's what the Marine Corps wants. They still want a ship that has that capability. It's that capability is amazing, and so they've gone through.
It's done.
They've gone through.
Ships don't do that.
They don't anymore. So that ship has gone through so many retrofits. But the initial, and I'll get into that here in a second. And I know we're coming up on a break soon.
That's okay. You didn't answer the question though. How were we able to bring those two ships back? We made two findings in two separate occasions.
I thought they were looking for the purpose for that.
No, because they found barrel liners for those things. Barrel liners are interchangeable in these guns, and they'd gone through the first batch. They found a second batch, were able to bring it back in Vietnam, and found a third batch that allowed them to bring that ship back for the Gulf War. I stumped you.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I thought so. I believe you can't tell me they can't make that shit now. So these guns,
I don't know.
So these guns, one of those barrels weighs damn near as much as a dreadnought class battleship from World War I. One of them. And those things are so heavy that they sit on with gravity, and the thought is that if that ship lifts more than X number of degrees, they're made to simply fall off, with the theory being that once that weight is gone, the ship will right itself again.
The ship with it? Okay.
Correct. The ship will right itself again. So those things aren't even bolted on or anything. They're literally just set on and held there by gravity. And the ship now, I mean, that the Missouri was retrofitted. It was able to shoot Tomahawk cruise missiles. It had the Phalanx gun systems on there for incoming missiles to be able to take out.
The CIWS close-in weapons system that they put on all the ships now. Those big, funny little vertical big tubes.
The R2D2 looking things.
Yeah.
The really cool thing about the Missouri, though, is the plaque. So two really cool things. Number one, there's a plaque on deck where the surrender was signed. This is why I say if you're going to see a battleship, see the Missouri. The Missouri was the ship in Tokyo Harbor that the Japanese signed the surrender on at the conclusion of World War II. And that is marked there with the thing. And there's also one of the drafts of the surrender that was signed by all of the participants that's on display there, along with a battle flag that still has bullet holes and everything in it from World War II. The other really cool thing on the ship is where a kamikaze pilot actually went into the side of the ship. The ship was hit with a kamikaze in one of the battles that it saw action in. It kind of dented and warped a little bit the side. The pilot ended up on the Missouri. And number one, they could never fix that, so that damage is still there. Because the steel is so thick and so forth, you can't fix it. So you can see where the kamikaze impact point was. And the other kind of special thing about that is the captain of the Missouri at the time ensured that the Japanese pilot was given full military honors and a burial at sea.
And wow. Very impressive. Did not know that.
And it was photographed, and I believe that was sent to the Japanese. I don't know if it was after the war or what. So you talked about seeing a battleship. I would highly recommend seeing the Missouri. And
A little bit of trivia before we go to the break, because we are going to go to the bottom of the hour break. The biggest difference between that, folks, do you remember, and Clint, do you remember 1980, the Battle of the Falklands, when the HMS Sheffield was sunk by one exocet fired from about 20 to 25 miles away, and it pierced the hull of the Sheffield, which is aluminum, caught fire, and sank the British ship with one Exocet missile. Today, with the armoring along that belt of, say, the Missouri or any of our battleships, an Exocet missile would make less of a dent than that kamikaze. Just a little bit of trivia for you guys. I guess we built them pretty damn good back then. Okay, we're going to take a break. I'm going to see if I can change the camera to Clint's satisfaction. And thanks for listening, folks. We're going to be right back. Hello. Come on. Do it. There you go.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads against tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
S-H-A-T.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yeah. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and Insidious. Insidious. You know, we talked about this for, a good, for the last 3 years. And finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of...
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Okay, well, as you can see, if you're watching on the SHR YouTube channel, we didn't really go away. We spent the entire break adjusting a camera. So I think we've got Sackhead Clint's camera taken care of. Let me move over here, because now we have the overhead shot,
which looks amazing, by the way.
And let's see, where's the? Let me go up here. Here's Clint's. Come on, there we go. Now that's the Clint chair. Clint, is that more acceptable to you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we've got that, and we've got the split screen, and we've got the
overview,
the single screen for me, and so I think we've got the views down a little bit better than we did.
This is not the view.
No, it isn't the view.
This is not the view.
But we have, maybe I should say, we've got the perspectives down.
We have the perspectives down.
That might be better. So
I like that.
We'll do the split screen, and I think... There, I think we've got it better now. At least
Perfect.
a little bit more to Sackhead Clint's acceptance.
There.
With that, there are two stories that have to do with hacking.
You just reminded me of something. You gave me a thought.
Oh, what's that?
We need a perspective cam.
Well, that's kind of what that one was going to be.
Like our perspective, like Clint cam. So it'd be like clip like right up here. And it would face you.
Oh, like a cop body cam.
It would face you, and then your camera would be on top, and it would face me.
Wow,
yes,
the cameras. Oh, we could get glasses.
Yes,
we could do the cop glasses thing.
Yes,
because a lot of people have those. A lot of departments went to the Axon cameras that are right on the chest. That I never really understood, because if you get into any kind of a critical incident,
it's going to block
the gun, and the firearm that you're holding occludes whatever you're seeing. So I always thought, departments, by the way, wake up. Get your damn body cams off your chest and put them either on the glasses or on your shoulder, on the epaulette or something like that.
On a helmet.
That's going to be a much better view than.
Oh yeah, never mind. Cops can't wear helmets. That's too militaristic.
I know that can't be. Speaking of cops, there have been so many ridiculous things that have occurred recently with regard to law enforcement. We may or may not get into that tonight, because that's a story for another day.
We've got a lot of national stuff to talk about tonight.
We do. Here's
the Navy.
One story from the Navy. The Navy just issued a report, and it said essentially that it is now completely under cyber siege. And we are bleeding national secrets, just what you didn't want to hear. Wait a minute. Why am I... Okay, now I'm getting a buzzing out of your microphone. That's weird. Okay. A 57-page internal Navy review provided to the Wall Street Journal paints a dire picture regarding an ongoing cyber war pitting hackers against the Sea Service. Navy Secretary Richard Spencer last week... said essentially, that report, of course, was leaked, that the United States Navy is under cyber siege by a host of actors, including, of course, Chinese government hackers who have exploited critical flaws in U.S. cybersecurity in order to steal troves of national security secrets from the defense industry. I thought for sure that was going to be Korea. I'm sure Korea is in there. Iran is in there. Russia may likely be in there as well. So we're leaking secrets. Wonderful. We can't keep our stuff. Well, we already know, at least in terms of this story. If it's digital, it can and will be hacked.
Yep.
Period. End of statement. So if anybody makes any kind of a fallacious statement to you, as in, oh, when we
a
take...
fallacious statement.
I know. F-A-L-L.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And no,
okay.
no E. F-A-L-L.
Okay. I didn't know.
All right. No, I know. And that's why I know. That's why
because I like
asking.
fallacious statements.
Right. Right. But the
like I like
other...
I don't have to. Never mind.
Variety. So if people say that your whatever it is, fill in the blank, oh, it's secure. Your DNA is going to be secure. Your genome, your personal genome is going to be secure.
Your camera in your house,
is
secure.
Secure. Anything that
your Amazon Alexa is secure.
Mm-hmm.
Siri is secure.
Right. And so the Internet of Things will be secure. Bullshit alert.
Yeah.
That's not going to be happening. The second article that we have about hacking, etc., is something that you discovered, and I want you to cover because up till tonight, I wasn't cognizant of that, and you made me aware of this.
So, there's I guess a fight underway for the future of 5G. 5G is the kind of the latest broadband technology. And the FCC, in their infinite wisdom, has decided that they want China to be the leaders of that. And so Qualcomm, I think, was making a lot of the 4G chips and technologies and so forth. And so the companies that were using that needed to buy a chip from them to put in, name your device. Well, you have companies.
A chip from Qualcomm.
Correct.
Okay. Which is an American company, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But they want to buy shit cheaper from China. So you have your Apples and so forth that were using this technology, but they wanted to buy cheaper stuff from China. So what did they do? They filed suit in San Francisco, of course, against I believe Qualcomm, and trying to get the technology released, try to get it cheaper and that kind of stuff. Well, I believe I think I said FCC. I think it's the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, wants to make a ruling that the 5G technology gets to go to China without staying here. Qualcomm is the leader of the industry, because it's going to be cheaper for everybody, and they don't believe in American exceptionalism, and they want one world global peace market, all that good stuff. And so the Obama administration, when they appointed the new head, filed suit in the closing days of the Obama administration. That's one of the suits that is going on here. The Donald Trump comes in to office. He appoints 3 Republicans to 2 on the board or the committee. So in theory, the 3 Republicans should be able to change course. Well, that
sounds like there's a big however in there.
Oh no! Do you want to showbiz this one?
I'm shutting up now.
No! You can't. No, I'm
you should. No, quiet. I'm listening.
You should. So this jackass on the Federal Trade Commission, who was appointed by Donald Trump. The Chinese company. I don't know how to pronounce it. Huawei. It's Huawei. Huawei, I think.
And they had something to do with Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. So Huawei and Apple, they manufacture in China. Okay, they do their manufacturing in China, and they want to buy their chips from there too, because they would rather pay. Qualcomm was charging right around $10 per device. They want to obviously pay less than that to increase their profit margin. Okay, I'm a good capitalist, but not at the expense of national security, right? So, President Trump appoints the new chairman of the FTC, Joe Simons, and he is on the commission. Well, after he's confirmed by the Senate, Simons recuses himself from the Qualcomm case, which leaves the balance of power at the FTC commissioners at 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the panel. Now, since it takes a majority to reverse direction, there is no majority ruling. And so the continued progress or the continued direction that was set in motion by the Obama administration gets to continue because this jackass recused himself. And since he recused himself, there is no way to reverse that process. So now you have this lawsuit that's pending. Again, it was filed in San Francisco, which is right by Apple. I mean, it's not anywhere near where the FTC sits. So it was filed in San Francisco. That's weird, right? And the same week that this lawsuit was filed, the financial officer for Huawei or whatever was arrested for colluding with Iran in violation of U.S. law. Well, guess who the FTC called as its first witness?
Gee, not that guy.
Huawei, right? Though the company that wants to control 5G on a global scale, this Chinese company. That's who they call her at their first witness. So the reason this is important is if this
listen to this, folks.
If this is successful,
this is astounding.
Which it probably will be. If it is successful, China will be the leader in 5G technology, not Qualcomm anymore. They will be able to control 5G technology. If you want to use 5G technology, you have to buy a chip manufactured not in the United States, not by Qualcomm, but in China. And if you have to buy a chip in China for anything that uses 5G, do you think they're going to have access to it?
Well,
this is a huge...
The Alaskan in chat said, plus the Chicoms can place any sort of monitoring or
yes, that's the point.
Reporting chip.
Yes.
Insert whatever technology is required to report whatever it is that you're doing back to them.
Think of what uses 4G technology right now in your life. We have deadbolts on front doors that are able to be unlocked with smartphones. We have home security systems. We have smart thermostats. We're talking your home, your car, your appliances, cameras, you name it.
The Internet of Things. If it can be digitized, and most things are now, and they're working on everything, because that's why it's called the Internet of Things.
Yeah.
Everything is subject.
Do you realize that privacy used to be... I was having this conversation with somebody this week. Privacy used to be very, very sacred. Americans used to fight for privacy rights. Now, they're like fighting to put everything out there as quick as they can. Privacy is not as big a deal anymore as it used to be to most people, and it should be.
I never understood that.
Which is why I think that I think that we're in some of the situation that we're in, and people aren't really paying attention. They're like, because the attitude is, if somebody in China really wants to watch me do laundry in my underwear, what do I care? That's the attitude. And that's the attitude. I've heard conservatives say that. Because I say, hey, don't you put like tape over your camera or something? And literally the response I get is, if somebody wants to watch me like change in my underwear, or well, what do I care? My life's not that interesting. I don't have anything in my bedroom. That is the attitude of today, and that is so scary.
But attach it to this. Attach it to what's going on in China right now. China has attaching to that a social score. So you as an individual in China, you can be upgraded and degraded with your social score according to how well you conform to Chinese rules, regulations, suggestions, orders, etc.
Yeah.
How is it that they find out about where to place you in a social score? They do that by the digitization of everything that you own, meaning that the Internet of Things, your car, at work, in your home, invading every aspect of your privacy, in isolation, maybe, doesn't seem all that big a deal. But taken in totality and doing the logical extension like what China is doing right now, and Google and Facebook all bending over backwards to make sure that they conform to whatever it is that China wants them to do in terms of censorship, because China is a massive untapped market for all of these bastards.
Yep.
These massive corporations, social media corporations, don't give one tinkering fuck about how they invade you. You're a commodity, you're a product, and you're there to be sold. And if China ultimately, if it hasn't already occurred in terms of the negotiations, if they haven't already acquiesced to China saying something similar to, you pay us a couple of $1 billion, whatever the agreement may be, we'll give you access to everything that everyone goes through Google or Facebook in the United States. We'll give that all to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing, considering the movement in the United States towards Democrat socialism, and what is socialism? Socialism is nothing but step one towards communism. Well, if China thinks it's a great idea to have a social marking in terms of where you are in the hierarchy of social justice warrior acceptance, well, if that works for China, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea here in the United States, say the Democrat socialists.
Well, I mean, China does it as a way to make sure that their government is in control, right?
It's power and control.
So people that are dissidents or people that speak out about the government, those scores go down. They get less services. They're not rated as high as for jobs. There's a lot of things that come into play with that score.
And bring that
right?
here now.
Well, and if you think what BZ's saying right now is bullshit or far-fetched,
yeah.
let me bring this to you. There was a Wells Fargo executive that AOC was trying to grill, and it was about funding on the pipeline and the funding, basically financial loans that Wells Fargo Bank have done, and she was saying, first of all, she didn't have the proper facts. She was talking about a leak in the pipeline. The pipeline hasn't even been built yet, so she kind of looked like an ass. She was reading off of talking points that somebody prepared for her. She was clearly reading a script and had no freaking clue what she was talking about. Huge shock. But the point of the matter is this: she's grilling this Wells Fargo guy, and she's basically trying to make the case, it seems to me, that she's trying to make the case that Wells Fargo should have some liability in X via oil spills from a pipeline or some other culpability because they fund a company that built projects for ICE that caged children. And so because Wells Fargo provided loans to companies that did something she didn't like, she wants to go after Wells Fargo. She's saying, she asked, what's the culpability or what's the liability for Wells Fargo for being financially tied to these projects or something
but
to
see,
that
that's
effect.
what New York, the state of New York, has already done with gun manufacturers. They have said, and other states have said, that if you do business as a bank with gun manufacturers or sellers, we're not going to allow you to do that. Some banks took it upon themselves to say that we are no longer going to be processing loans if you want to be involved in manufacturing weapons, firearms, accessories, or if you want to be a gun store. And funny you should mention that, Sackheads Clint, because as you were speaking, do you want to hear the audio cut from that?
I would love to hear the audio cut from this crackhead.
Here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez making mention of this.
Seek unanimous consent to submit 3 reports highlighting the bank's role in debt financing these groups, the for-profit prison companies running ICE detention facilities.
Without objection, such is the order.
Mr. Sloan, why was the bank involved in the caging of children and financing the caging of children to begin with?
What?
I don't know how to answer that question because we weren't.
So in finance, you were financing and involved in debt financing of CoreCivic and Geo Group, correct?
for a period of time we were involved in financing one of the firms, we're not anymore, and the other. I'm not familiar with the specific assertion that you're making, but we weren't directly involved in it.
So that's what you're saying, if I'm understanding that correctly, is that's the new normal. Under her, the new normal will be if you are remotely linked causally or at an extension, here would be the logical extension. If you helped to build the new branch of a corporation that she didn't care for or her socialist minions didn't care for, the logical extension would be if you helped connect the electricity that built to that building, you're subject to destruction. If you were the construction company that was linked to building that building, you would be subject to social destruction. If you poured the cement for the foundations of that company, you would be subject to destruction. If you plumbed the company, if you put in the electrics in that company.
She actually made a point. She was talking more about the pipeline. So that was the questioning regarding to the buildings for ICE, the ICE detention facilities.
But we see where it's going.
Oh, absolutely. But she actually asked the question, what is Wells Fargo liability or culpability? I forgot how she phrased it, in this pipeline that supposedly was leaking. She straight up asked that question. What is the culpability or liability, however she phrased it, which is scary on a lot of different levels.
In terms of common sense.
How this guy didn't stand up and say...
See, now that's the first thing I was thinking when I was listening to what he was saying. And I have the luxury of being able to look at the face that he's presenting to her, in the timbre of his voice and looking at his face. He's frightened. This is something that he's never been subject to before. He's been brought in front of her. Mm-hmm. She's an unknown quantity, and then asks him a question
phrased the way it is,
out of left field that he has no idea. He no more saw that coming than the man in the moon. And my first response to that would be something similar to what Howard Hughes said in an open forum with regard to building planes during World War II. I don't answer to you. I'm a bank. We make loans. What happens with that money afterwards? This is a business engagement one-on-one between ourselves and people that are looking to do something with that money. Beyond that, if it's not illegal, if we're not loaning money to the cartels, for example, you can rightly fuck off.
Yes. That would be my response.
That would be my first response.
Yeah. What is our country? Well, we know what our country's coming to.
Yes.
And you look at, we're not students of history anymore. We talk about this ad nauseum, but the communists, we are the communists, the socialists, the fascists, insert big government type, and what do they have to do? They have to exert control. They have to. Okay, so I have. Did I tell you? I don't think I did. I didn't tell. I have a Clint story. I did have one. I have one, and it plays into this. But we're going to come back after the break.
Yeah, because we only. In other words, you don't have it. It's going to take more than a minute to tell this story.
Yeah,
right?
I could try it. Look,
okay,
big deal.
Right.
So we go a couple minutes over. So I don't think I've talked to you since then, but I met I had the pleasure of meeting and engaging with and hearing a remarkable individual, and so I was at a place, and there were a few different artists there, like not rap artists or anything like that, but like legit like artists, like painting artists.
Okay, all right.
And one of these artists, I wasn't a huge fan of his style. I wasn't a huge fan of his work, because it just wasn't my style. But I'll tell you what, after I had the opportunity to speak with him, after I had the opportunity to hear him speak, I am a huge fan of his work, and his work actually grew on me. And the artist is an artist out of Florida. He's known. He goes by Lebo, Lebo, and his work kind of reminds me, it kind of like almost looks like graffiti, street art, which is not my thing. But I'm sitting here and he's got all his art kind of out on display, and this was a pretty big event, and he's got some things out or whatever, and he said a few things to the group. But here's his story, and he was telling us his story, and he's telling us how his family immigrated from Cuba, and he's talking about being poor and in Cuba and having to try and make it here in America with his mom and his struggles, some of the struggles that he was having. And he made mention of, he said, in Cuba, my parents and so forth, my family growing up in Cuba, hey, first they took their guns, then they took their religion. He said, and that's always how it starts. And he kind of slipped it in because I think he knows he's in California, and I don't know the crowds he's used to talking to, but he said very specific, and this is somebody whose family had lived it in Cuba. First they take your guns, then they take your religion. And that struck home. That's Lebo. Yep, that's some of his artwork. So why is that scary? What are they trying to do here in the U.S.? They're attacking guns, and they're attacking religion. What did Hitler do in World War II? He took guns. He went after religion. You can read the biography of Bonhoeffer. A great story if you have a chance to read that. But anyways, Lebo was talking about, and he was talking about these things, and then he went on. And he said, I want to tell you a story about this art. And he had several pieces that were out, and there were pieces of wood, and they were like cuts of wood, and he'd done some art on the wood. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But he says, let me tell you the story about this collection.
Now, was he there to talk to you about what you're saying? That is to say, the slippery slope kind of thing?
No, it was
that was an adjunct of him making a presentation about his art.
Yeah, it was him talking about his art to all of us, and this was an invite only event, and so
but you intuited much more out of it.
Absolutely, well, yeah, absolutely. How do you not, right? First they take your guns, then they take your religion. He's talking specifically about this, and they said that's how totalitarian and governments work. And the guy is extremely smart. In talking with him, the guy knows world history. He knows religious history. Name the religion. The guy is very, very smart. Very well. I don't know if he's self-educated. I think a lot of it is self-education, just because he has a hunger for knowledge. Anyway, so he's talking about these pieces with the wood and so forth, and he says this is called my Purple Heart collection, and that's the face I made right there. I said, okay, I'm listening.
I know what that means, but does it mean the same thing to you?
He said so. Let me tell you the story. So, and I may screw up the story, but I'm going to give it to you in essence, just knowing that some of my details may be fuzzy, but the crux of the story is what's important. He says there was this individual that he knew was living in a building kind of with somebody he knew or whatever, but he was down on his luck. He was a vet from, I believe, Afghanistan, might have been Iraq, but he was a vet. He was an EOD guy, lost his leg, and was kind of having a hard time. So he likes doing stuff with wood, and Lebo kind of sees him with wood, and he asked the guy, hey, how much wood do you have to cut? How much wood do you have to cut and sell? Because he does custom things with wood. How many pieces would you have to make in order for you to be able to live? Pay your rent, buy food, keep the lights on, basically. How much would you have to make? And the guy gave him a number, and Lebo said, okay, I want you to cut me wood, make things, do shapes or whatever, and I will buy that much from you. Lebo then took that wood that he bought from this vet, so now gave him a way to sustain himself, to live,
right,
and created art on this wood. And what Lebo said is, I believe in a hand up, not a hand out. So now with this vet, the vet does the wood cutting, the wood piece, Lebo does the paint on it, and they sell it together. And every piece he makes has this guy's on the back because they create this art together, and now this guy is actually sustaining himself through work.
That is ingenious.
There was another lady there, and I don't remember the specific story about her, but she was older, and I guess Lebo had a piece of canvas or whatever that was that was ruined or whatever, so he had her take a piece of this canvas and put it on a piece of clothing because she was a seamstress, and he wanted to pay her for it. She knew she was having a hard time. Well, he did it, and he loved this. I believe it was a jacket. Loved it. And so he asked her again. She was struggling. I don't know if it was the same building, different, what the connection is there, but he asked her, hey, what can you do? Can you give me pieces of cloth, things that you sew or put together that I can incorporate, and can we work something out?
Yeah, and I'll turn it into a piece of my art.
And that's what they did. So she creates whatever. He may give her colors, suggestions. She creates whatever with linen, and then he takes that and creates art with it. And I forget what that collection is called, but now she's successful as well. And they have this art collection together. And he said, again, I believe in a hand up, not a hand out. So those two stories gave me a completely different perspective on what this guy was doing, and the art he was making, and who he is as a person. I mean, he rolled up. He has this van, this big, like, it looked like an Econo van or something, 4-wheel drive. Like, he drove from Florida to where we were in this big van, jacked up, 4-wheel drive, lifted. It was awesome. It was a cool looking van. I mean, it looks like something you'd see out of some survivalist show or something. But I was so impressed with him as an individual. And his sense of charity, his sense of community, his sense of country. It really came through, not specifically with what he was saying per se, but just with the perspective, kind of the vibe I got from him as he was talking about his experiences with his family being from Cuba and here in the United States, and helping the vet, and really being touched by the vet story and kind of how he sacrificed. He talked about his sacrifice for his country so that Lebo has the freedom to create and do the things he can do. And it was not what I expected at all from an artist. I was so impressed. And so I wanted to share that story. And I forgot we didn't do a show last week, and so I haven't seen you since this time, and wanted to share that with our listeners.
That's a fabulous story, and what it does is lend credence to the people that are doing it right. And what I mean by that is, in your town, in your city, somewhere in your capital, wherever you are in your state, somewhere on certain days of the week, we have more Americans that are being sworn in from other countries who have done it all right. They've jumped through all the hoops. They've answered all the questions. They have taken the test. These are people who were dying to be Americans so badly that they went through this entire lengthy process, held their hands up, swore an oath to defend the United States. These are the people that we need more of, not the people that want to be nothing more than what I would consider to be abject parasites on this nation. So the one good thing about that, and if you had had the luxury of being able to take him aside and one-on-one speak to him, I bet he would.
I did.
And I bet he would tell you a story about how wonderful it is to be an American, how glad he is to be an American, how he respects the country. Were you able to get anywhere like that? It didn't quite go there.
His conversation, he was very intellectual in talking about the different cultures he studied and so forth. And it came across, he didn't need to say it. It came across in just even the things that I just talked to you about right now, that he's proud to be here in the country. He's proud to be an American, and he thinks that this is the greatest country on earth. It came across in the way he spoke and everything he said. That was nothing that I really needed to even ask him specifically. I mean, I only had a couple minutes to really talk with him, but that really didn't need to be said. It just that just kind of.
But how sad is it that we have people that are still doing what is required? We just don't have enough of them. And then when they become American citizens, they are some of the most devoted, loyal individuals that you could find here in the United States of America. Now, folks, it's 10 after 9 on the left coast, and it's 10 after midnight on the east coast. We were going to have a break. We didn't have a break. And we're not going to have a break now until we get to the bottom of the hour. But you're listening to the Sackheads Against Tyranny. That's Sackheads Clint over there. I'm Sackheads BZ. We want to continue with this because a big bombshell got dropped today or yesterday. One of the two, I don't remember which.
Which bombshell? I'm curious which bombshell you're talking about. 'Cause there were a couple that were dropped.
I have two articles from two separate news outlets about it. Here's one from The Hill that doesn't necessarily It sure as hell doesn't lean right. It says it's moderate, but it tends to lean left. But from the Hill, and as a matter of fact, this might be a John Solomon article, and if it is, he is I mean, if you want to know who an actual journalist is these days, it's John Solomon.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's BZ.
Writing for the Hill, and this is a John Solomon article. Lisa Page bombshell. FBI couldn't prove Trump-Russia collusion before the Mueller appointment. And on its face, you may think something like, okay, well, I don't, why is this important?
That's
Listen,
what an investigation is for.
Yeah. Listen to this. To date, Lisa Page's infamy has been driven mostly by the anti-Donald Trump text messages she exchanged with fellow FBI agent Peter Strzok as the two engaged in an affair while investigating the president for alleged election collusion with Russia. Yet when history judges the former FBI lawyer, years from now, her most consequential pronouncement may not have been typed on her bureau-issued Samsung smartphone to her colleague and lover. Rather, it might be 8 simple words she uttered behind closed doors during a congressional interview a few weeks ago. Page told this to Representative John Ratcliffe of Texas when she was questioned about texts that she and Strzok exchanged in May 2017 as Robert Mueller was being named special counsel to take over the Russia investigation. She said, "It's a reflection of us still not knowing." And so with those words, what she ended up doing was acknowledging what is now truly a momentous fact. After 9 months of using some of the most incredibly awesome surveillance powers afforded to U.S. intelligence, the FBI had still not made a case connecting Trump or his campaign to Russia's election meddling. And she said further, Lisa Page said further, it still existed in the scope of possibility that there would be literally nothing to connect Trump and Russia, no matter what Mueller or the FBI did. She said, as far as May of 2017, we still could not answer that question. So John Solomon said he reached out to Page's lawyer on Friday. She didn't want to answer any questions about her client's cooperation with Congress. And so Solomon writes, and you really have to do the logical extension. He writes, let this sink in. Let the Lisa Page statement sink in. The enormity of it all. She isn't just any FBI lawyer. She was the lead on the Russian case when it started in the summer of 2016. And she helped it transition to Robert Mueller in the summer of 2017. So shortly after he was fired, James Comey told the Senate there was not yet evidence to justify investigating Trump for colluding with Russia. When I left, we did not have an investigation focused on President Trump, Comey testified. So you have to do the logical extension. What we also discovered was that our DOJ, the Department of Justice of the United States, essentially told the FBI, you will be dropping the case against Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, and so this is also from Lisa Page's testimony, where Ratcliffe, member Ratcliffe, characterized DOJ's comments to the FBI, basically saying that they are not going to charge gross negligence, and Lisa Page said that that's correct. The DOJ said they're not going to charge gross negligence, and now this chart has appeared. This mystery chart from the investigation. And it was reviewed exclusively by Fox News, so this was reported by Fox News that this chart exists and that they had a chance to see it. And in this chart, where they're trying to kind of like connect the dots and so forth during their investigation, there was the chart was prepared by federal investigators working the case, and on one of the sections that is up there in terms of a potential violation, there was a note on there, and it says, quote, "Note, DOJ not willing to charge this." And that was written right next to a statute talking about the mishandling of classified information. That's important because that's a chart made during the investigation. So when you're doing really complex investigations, sometimes you got to go old school and you put a chart together to kind of show relationships and so forth.
That's
right?
how I worked. I worked on a whiteboard.
That's just it's an easy visual snapshot.
Yes, I'm a visual guy
that you can look at and say, okay, where are my players? Where are they? How are they connected? Who are they connected to? Okay, that's it. So, and how is this charge connected to this person or whatever? So they had this going. And there was that note on there that DOJ not willing to charge this. The reason that's important is because if you remember, James Comey came out and said specifically, how many times did he say this? I don't even know, that he came out specifically and said that he and his team independently made the determination that charges were not going to be filed. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He said independently, this was that nobody else was involved. Independently, we made the decision that we're not going to file charges. Clearly, that's bullshit.
And that's what I originally said.
Clearly, that's bullshit.
Back then in 2016 is anyone with a slight inkling of knowledge about how the legal system functions, it's not the FBI's place to decide. That's like, I am a detective for a local agency, and that's me telling my district attorney that I'm not going to be filing anything on this particular crime, whereas the DA would be coming back to me and saying, do your fucking job, stay in your lane, do the investigation.
Yep.
I am the determinant only of whether or not these charges will be filed.
Yes.
So we had James Comey doing the job of the DOJ, and apparently willingly. So, again, doing the logical extension out of all of this, this can be laid at the feet directly of the Attorney General at the time, Loretta Lynch.
Yep. And didn't she have a meeting with somebody on a tarmac?
Yes, she did.
Weird.
Yeah, but they only talked about their grandparents.
Grandkids.
They are grandkids. They weren't, commiserating in terms of, well, I want to assuage your fears, Bill. The fix is already in. We're not going to be charging Hillary.
Yes.
The decision having been made, if we remember our history, even prior to Hillary Clinton coming in and in the presence of 9 Hillary Clinton attorneys, that decision was already been made prior to her interview. This is entirely all upside down. But let me ask an if-then equation. And I know the answer, and I'm just going to throw it out there for everybody listening, and for you as well. Do you believe, Sackheads Clint, for a microsecond, that if Loretta Lynch was firmly cognizant of where this was going, and clearly it would seem to me that Loretta Lynch is at the head of the DOJ, it's her job to have her finger on the pulse of all of these highly critical and political investigations. First question, do you think she was not in the loop and did not have an inkling as to what was going on with regard to Hillary Clinton and James Comey? Okay.
Of course she was in the loop.
Asked and answered, number one. Question number two, if we assume that Loretta Lynch was fully cognizant of what was going on, do we not then go to the ultimate individual, the President of the United States? Do we believe that Barack Hussein Obama was sufficiently daft or devoid of political acumen to not know or not be informed in terms of what Loretta Lynch already knew? In other words, wouldn't it be logical to think that Barack Hussein Obama would want to know what was transpiring in the DOJ being run by Loretta Lynch?
Of course.
So the ultimate question is,
yes, of course he would want to know.
Does all of this not lay at the feet of Barack Hussein Obama?
I think that I believe a case can be made based on what I believe. I believe a case can be made with evidence, and granted, I'm obviously not privy to the evidence that's out there, but I believe a case could be made if this were investigated to where 100%. You could lay this on Loretta Lynch and the head of the the head of the DOJ. I believe Barack Obama was in the know. I believe Barack Obama knew exactly what was going on every step of the way because the stakes were too high. Hillary Clinton was running for president of the United States. The Democrats were in a position to maintain or lose power in the presidency. There was a lot of things at stake. So to believe that the president was not privy to what was going on, I think is naive. And that's putting it very mildly.
Yes, you're being very kind.
Do I think that a case could be made to prove that President Obama said you're not going to charge her? I don't know. I don't think the president is that stupid. And I think that it's a lot more difficult. He's supposedly one step removed. I think he did it. Don't get me wrong. I believe that that President Obama knew what was going on, and I believe it's very likely that he said, yeah, you're not going to charge her, too much is at stake. Believing that or thinking that occurred and being able to prove that are two completely different things. I think just based on what we have now, knowing that DOJ said very specifically we are not going to charge this, I believe that there's evidence to track it to the head of the DOJ at the time. Absolutely. Loretta Lynch. Do I think there's a link between Loretta Lynch at the DOJ and the President of the United States in terms of this case and direction that was given? I don't know. I'm not as quick to say, oh yeah, I think absolutely that can be proved. Now, do I think that's proved is a very different question than do I think it happened.
I understand exactly what you're saying. What we would have needed to do was to somehow determine if there's a specific linkage. In other words, can we get Barack Hussein Obama's fingerprints on the knife?
Maybe. I think that's going to be very difficult to do, but is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But ultimately, is this a... Look, I think that Loretta Lynch needs to be held accountable 100%, and James Comey and everybody that had their fingers on this, 100%. Just because a president had knowledge doesn't necessarily mean that there was any criminality there, but Loretta Lynch sure as hell interfered with an investigation. If they're coming right out and saying, yeah, we're not charging that, don't even bother. Don't even bother with that. But I guess the real question is, does she have the discretion to decide that she's not going to charge that? And
the original answer to that question would be yes.
Yes.
Except with all of the duplicity and the lies that have gone on in the interim. In other words,
Yes.
if we can throw Paul Manafort away
Yes.
for lying, what about all of the jackals
Yes. And
that are linked to this who the lie is always worse. We're throwing Michael Cohen away. He lied. He's a liar. We're throwing Paul Manafort away. He lied. He's a liar.
Yeah, but why are we doing that? Why are we doing that?
Well, they're crimes of process because they were linked to the guy with the dead orange cat on his head.
We're doing that because when the report comes out that says the Mueller investigation is done, the Mueller investigation resulted in X number of convictions. The Mueller investigation into Russia collusion resulted in X number of convictions. It's not going to matter whether Donald Trump actually colluded with Russia or not. We know he didn't. That we believe that's what's going to happen. But what is the headlines going to be in the news? It's going to be Mueller investigation into the Russia collusion of the Trump administration results in 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever convictions. And so what is the run-of-the-mill person who doesn't really pay attention or look deep into these things going to think?
We all know
that's why we're seeing the charges brought that we're seeing brought. Do I think that they shouldn't be charged? I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is this is why we're seeing it. And the fact that we're charging these people, but we let Hillary Clinton go. Look, you don't hear about the emails anymore. You don't hear about Benghazi anymore. Oh my God.
Okay.
How is this woman not in prison? And is there a 14th Amendment issue here? Because do we not have the right to equal protection under the law? The law clearly is not being applied equally.
I'm looking for an article that I wrote, And probably 3 months ago, I took at least an hour or more to tell everyone what I thought was the causal linkage that started the whole thing with regard to the emails and where it led up to. Let me throw this scenario by you, and I may have to go after the break. We got 4 more minutes. I don't think I can wrap this up.
We can just take a break now. We missed a break. When we take a break now, it's our show. We can do that how we want.
That's right.
We're at a good time. Why don't we take a break now, come back, and round it out?
I'd like to make some links that essentially no one else has done. And with that, the last break is here. We're going to do it a little bit early, folks. Don't go anywhere, because I'm going to see if I can find that article and tie this all up and connect the dots for everybody.
A nice little package.
Yes, this is the Shat Show. That's Sackheads Clint over there, and I'm Sackheads BZ. Come right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
When dirty politicians, shadow governments, and deceptive Islam blind the world with fake stream media smoke, their only fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through shrmedia.com, highplanestalkradio.com, and the Western Free Radio Network at Spreaker, YouTube, and iTunes for a different perspective weekly on the Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender ever,
because truth is not always pleasant.
Hey guys, it's Sackhead Clint. I'm excited to tell you about a brand new show here on the SHR Media Network. I'm teaming up with the one and only all-powerful, the bloviating Zeppelin, sitting here to my left, bringing to you a fresh new show here on the network. It's Against Tyranny. And we'll be picking up where the Sackheads left off. Excited to be with you, sir.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
We're going to chat. We're going to chat Wednesday nights.
SHAT.
Sackheads Against Tyranny.
Wednesday nights, 11 p.m. Oh, it's the same time, right? 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Same SAC time, same SAC channel.
Yep. SHRmedia.com.
See what I did there?
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Human by race, Christian by faith, American by nationality, and conservative by choice. Reverend Ralph J. Chittum Sr. is the right guy on SHR Media from 8:05 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday. And if on the rare occasion I am ever wrong, I will still always be right. The right guy on SHR Media.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
Hey, BZ. So the plan's working. You got rid of Sacco. Sean is now stepping away.
I never even saw him.
And I know, and insidious. You know, we talked about this for, for the last 3 years, and finally coming to fruition.
You know I'm still in the room, right?
It's almost like he's here still. Did you hear that?
Yeah, it's kind of.
It's amazing. It's kind of
at you.
It's kind of eerie.
Kind of a poltergeist.
Like a poltergeisty thing.
Yeah, Sackheads against tyranny.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
We're back for the final about 28 minutes right now. You're listening to the Shot Show. This is the Sackheads Against Tyranny. And during the break, I went over this situation. You may or may not remember, folks. I took almost an entire show to tie Benghazi, Mark Turi, Stinger missiles, Syria, to Hillary Clinton, and ultimately to Barack Hussein Obama. And I can't find my article. I wrote it. I read it. I didn't have time to try to find it. I'm afraid that my article that was in here before everything got moved got dumped because I took probably a week to put this all together and then talk to everybody about it. But during it's my belief that the bulk of this has to do with, in terms of Hillary Clinton's emails, has to do with an arms dealer by the name of Mark Turi, T-U-R-I. And he was in the process of selling Stinger missiles. So basically, the CIA was running an arms smuggling team in Benghazi when the consulate was attacked. Christopher Stevens was out there specifically to this little piece of crap consulate that Hillary Clinton had previously denied security to not make it look like it was that particularly important.
Yeah, it was a diplomatic outpost.
It was an outpost, yeah. Which again she refused to upgrade the security. Yep. And Mark Turi was the intermediate because during various attacks we found Stinger missiles, and after having put the pieces together, those Stinger missiles were found to be American missiles. So essentially, the email scam is that it would have linked Hillary Clinton to this, which is why she deleted the emails. Also, my belief is that a great deal of Hillary Clinton and Clinton Foundation information was on those emails on the server. And the ultimate thing was, I think it went directly up to Barack Hussein Obama. He was made aware of this, and the feeling was there is no way that he could be linked with essentially arms smuggling, which pretty much took down President Reagan from the Iran-Contra affair back in the 80s, if we recall. And from something like that, it could have taken down Barack Obama and tainted, as if he didn't taint it enough, and tainted essentially everything that he did during his 8 years. Now, that having been said, this investigation, we discover, has been nixed by the Department of Justice because I firmly believe that it does link Loretta Lynch and Barack Obama to all of these things. Now, remember when Strzok and Page were talking about an insurance policy?
Yep.
No one knew at the time for sure. As a matter of fact, I'm sure many of the people thought, oh, some guy with orange hair and orange makeup is going to be president of the United States. No way. Except, just in case, we do need an insurance policy. And what was the insurance policy? The insurance policy is making sure that we had set up a number of roadblocks in terms of the deep state to make sure that these things could not roll smoothly through, and to make sure that we had a process through Peter Strzok to try to ensure that we could begin an investigation. Actually, it was through James Comey, who leaked information hoping that James Comey himself could push an investigation to Mueller to backtrack through Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head. And I know it sounds bizarre, and Byzantine and convoluted. But taken in totality, to me, this makes more sense than a lot of other things because, like a lump of cat shit in a sandbox where kids are playing, people will do anything to cover up the cat shit in there. Now, from the article that you were originally reading, there's a little bit more. Lisa Page, and since fired FBI Special Agent Peter Strzok were romantically involved. They exchanged a whole bunch of numerous anti-Trump messages and leading up to the 2016 presidential election, and Republicans have long accused the Bureau of political bias. But in fact, her testimony that you were talking about, Clint, was the most salient evidence yet that the Department of Justice improperly interfered with the FBI's allegedly independent investigation and their allegedly independent conclusions on Clinton's culpability. This is directly, this quote that I'm about to read now says it all, and it's right out of this article that you were quoting. So let me, if I can, I know I'm testing your memory, Ratliff began as he questioned Page under oath, according to a transcript excerpt he posted on Twitter. But when you say advice you got from the department, you're making it sound like it was the department that told you you're not going to charge gross negligence because we're the prosecutors and we're telling you we're not going to. And he didn't get to finish his sentence. Lisa Page interrupted and she said, "That is correct. Bring a case based on that." So to me, that again goes to the DOJ, Loretta Lynch, and Barack Obama. I mean, how much of a nutter am I to make those kinds of suppositions? I don't think I am.
I don't think you are to make that supposition that he had knowledge and maybe even directed, but I think having
the direct evidence
to prove the president of the United States made that direction
is going to be tough.
I would be shocked if it exists. And who knows? He might not have directed that. He might have said, "Keep me in the loop." Oh, you're not charging this? Okay, perfect.
But see, in between Benghazi and all the bullshit that happened along the way, to include the Trump Tower, Trump being on surveillance, Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn, numerous bodies have hit the floor, literally, under the guise of process. So when people want to, and they're going to, crow when the Mueller report comes out, but already Devin Nunes and Adam Schiff, the little war that they're having back and forth between each other. Devin Schiff and the Democrats are now shifting the goalpost in terms of, well, the Mueller report may not find a lot of Russian collusion, but it's time for impeachment. So they're already shifting the goalposts full well knowing.
Nancy Pelosi already came out and said that she's not for impeachment.
Well,
Nancy
that doesn't
Pelosi
matter.
came out and said that.
That doesn't matter anymore. That doesn't matter anymore.
If she doesn't allow the articles of impeachment to come on the floor for a vote.
But who runs the party and who pushes the politics?
Well, she's the Speaker of the House.
Yes, she is.
So if they want to depose her as Speaker of the House, then however that works. But yeah, look, if the Democrats take the Senate in 2020,
who's running the Democrats right now? 2 Muslims and a bartender.
Yes,
that's like a joke. 2 Muslims and a bartender go into a bar,
go into Congress. Look, it's the Democratic Party is having an identity crisis.
Oh.
They are shifting hard left. Look, the Democrat super PAC just let Ohio go. Did you read that?
Yes, I did, because they thought they couldn't do anything in Ohio.
That's huge.
That's a big statement.
That is huge.
That's a large admission.
Yes, it is. You got the economy that's growing. Here's the bottom line. You got the economy growing at 3%. Nobody thought that was ever possible. Never going to happen. You have the blah, 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 right? Oh, we have black unemployment, the lowest ever. Minority unemployment, the lowest ever.
Yeah, and the
greatest growth in 10 years. Blah, 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 right?
Exactly, yeah.
So nobody can take Trump on the economy. And if they take him straight up in election, I think that they know they're going to lose. They have to re-energize their base. But I think in the interim, this socialist strategy is really going to kill them. and I don't mean that literally, I mean that figuratively. I think
politically, you're talking about.
Politically, I'm talking about. I think that if the Democratic Party was smart, which they're conniving, but I don't know how smart they are, they would have the Democratic Socialist Party, and they would have a new Democratic Party or a blue dog Democrat Party, which would encompass probably most of America. You would have the Republicans, who are like diet Republicans or little r Republicans, little L libertarians. It would grab a whole range of people, particularly in the Midwest, and I think that could be very formidable, because you split off the Democrat socialists and you give them their own wing. Look, you kick Bernie Sanders out. How many Democrats stood up when Donald Trump proclaimed that we will never be a socialist country?
Here's an interesting.
No, how many of them?
Oh, well.
Yeah. And that's why I don't.
Goose egg.
Yeah. Well, no, a lot of them stood up. Do you remember that when he made his speech? Nancy Pelosi stood up and clapped when Donald Trump said, "We will never be a socialist party." Most of the Democrats stood up and clapped. Bernie Sanders sat there like somebody just kicked him in the dick.
Well,
and AOC, same thing. But a majority of the Democrats stood up and cheered, and so that should tell you something. So yes, these are. It's kind of like who gets the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? Or the squeaky bird gets the worm. I don't know whatever the hell that saying is.
Like the squeaky bird.
Yeah, the squeaky bird gets the oil, whatever. But who gets the most attention? It's the minority group who is the loudest. They get the attention, they get the play, and that's what's happening in Congress right now. And in this country, we've been on a trend to bending over backwards to appease this minority group.
It's a niche boutique group
who's loud and angry. We bend over backwards to appease them at the expense and at the exclusion of everybody else. So AOC and Omar and whoever that other
Rashida Tlaib
broad is.
Yeah.
They are the squeaky wheel. They're getting all of the press. They rile up their extreme base, and who's their extreme base? This is Antifa. They are
actual socialists.
They are actual socialists, actual communists. You want to know why they're called Antifa, anti-fascist? Because communists hate fascists. They're both big government. Fascist is big government. Communists are big government, but communists hate fascists, right? Opposite sides of the same coin. That's the loud bait. That's who they're doing it. Who makes the most noise? Who in Sacramento just got arrested for smashing windows and keying cars and being vandalizing vehicles and so forth in East Sacramento? It was a small minority group. Minority meaning that numerically speaking, not an ethnic term in this case.
Yeah, BLM and another group whose name escapes me.
Yeah, look, and those groups are not getting huge support because even. Look, when Becerra, and we're talking about the Stephon Clark shooting with Sac PD, those were not charged by the Sacramento County District Attorney. They were not charged by the California State Attorney General, who I would be willing to bet wanted nothing more than to charge the officers with something. But
I happened to watch that press conference.
But they laid out the case very, very succinctly in a very logical, methodical way, and they basically knew there was no way they can do it. And this minority group still, minority again meaning numerically, still wanted to go out and use it as an excuse to go out and try and destroy things. They were not overwhelming in numbers. They're a small group. Most of the public, I think, understands that the officers did the right thing, but yet who gets acquiesced to? What happened as a result of that?
Well,
we have the police department now bending over backwards.
yes.
We're sorry we arrested anybody. Daryl Steinberg's just a fucking bag of dicks, pardon my expression.
Well, and Anne-Marie Schubert unfortunately decided that she was going to drop all 84 of the citations when people were arrested.
Of course she
following
was.
that.
Of course she was. So anyways, this is a microcosm of the larger issue in the country. I bring up this local Sacramento issue to bring it up of we as a nation have gotten used to bending over backwards, at least in positions of power, for the will of the minority group. And that's exactly what you're seeing in Congress right now. That's why these three freshman broads that have no clue what they're doing or what they're talking about are able to be running Congress because it's them and their supporters that are loud, that are violent, in my opinion, particularly if you look at how Antifa and some of these supporters have handled themselves and shouting people down and getting people and yeah, they are willing to engage in violence to push their agenda. They're willing to stop their opponents or their perceived opponents or their perceived enemies any way they can. And so that's what we're seeing. I don't think a majority of America or even a majority of Democrats are on board with that. They're just not. So the Democrats need to find a way to cut them loose, let them go out their own, be crazy, and re-message what they're doing.
Okay, that leads to another question. Now, folks that are listening, with that having been said, and after I make this, I want to throw this back to you. There are two elements now, because Bernie Sanders has thrown his hat in the ring, and any time that you're listening to CNN or any of the other American media maggots that I call them, they're telling us about how much money Bernie Sanders is making in terms of donations. They're not talking about his efficacy, because recent polls have indicated that he's not that popular. Then Joe Biden threw his hat in the ring. Now, for the people,
Joe Biden announced?
Yes, he did.
I missed that. When was that?
He is going to be officially in there.
How did I miss that?
I don't know.
When did that come out?
I don't know, like yesterday.
Oh, I missed that.
So the question you have to ask is, how are Bernie and a Joe Biden going to survive in an environment that's influenced so much by AOC, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, the two Muzzy chicks, and people that are doing nothing but open mouth and yell?
Yeah. Biden is going, and what's funny about that is they can't be controlled.
Yes, they cannot, because Pelosi has essentially lost power.
I think
can they not have a gosh, what am I thinking of here? Can those elements not say something like, we have a sincere and distinct interest in a vote of no confidence with regard to Speaker Pelosi, and we just recently elected her. She became Speaker by the skin of her teeth, and we're not interested in this direction. So I think perhaps the overarching question, Sackhead Clint, is who's going to win come next year? What element are they, the Democrats, going to take in against Trump?
It depends.
Will it be the far left?
Look, it depends, and this is kind of the crux of my statement when I said they really need to cut them off and move them away.
And that was my point of making that mention.
If they cut them off and move them away, I think Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump. I believe Joe Biden can beat Donald Trump.
Perhaps
I think that
nearly as confident.
No, I'm not. I didn't say he will. I said I think he can.
Right.
And he can. He's very middle of the road. He gets along with both sides of the aisle. He is a statesman. He is able to. He says some Uncle Joe remarks, right? But he is able to conduct himself appropriately. And I don't think he would govern from the far left. I'm not saying I'd vote for the guy, but I'm saying I don't think he'd govern from the far left. But he would, of course, be left of Donald Trump. But I think he'd be to the right of Obama. That's not necessarily saying much. I think that he could be more of a Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton, as a president, did some good things.
Because he recognized that he needed to be a politician.
Yes, and I think Joe Biden has that quality. And that's what scares me about Joe Biden running against Donald Trump. I think if Joe Biden wins the nomination, I think Trump is going to have a hard fight on his hands. Trump can win. He's going to have to re-message on the economy and really hit the economy, particularly in the swing states. But here's Trump's problem. Trump doesn't know when to Trump does not know when to shut up, and Joe Biden does. And in an election like this, if Biden's the nominee, the ability to shut up and listen may be the difference.
Here was my last night I went into, here is my policy. If I am the campaign director of Trump, here's what I would do. And I said, this is what I wanted to do last night. You're going to have to make it, this did not work in 2018, so you can't do it in 2020. Trump wanted to make it about him in 2018. In 2020, this is what he needs to do.
And he picked up ground in the Senate.
He did, but he lost the House. But it's winnable if in 2020 he doesn't make it necessarily so much about him. He makes it all about the leftists, the hard left elements of the party. And then I said last night, with my massive, not so massive editing capabilities in Audacity, I would love to put a 30-second to 60-second commercial of all the stupid shit and far left crazy ass crap that has been said by leftists and Democrats just in the past year and a half. That's your election commercial right there.
It is, but here's the problem with Donald Trump. And I like Donald Trump.
Yes.
Joe Biden could do the same thing with Donald Trump clips. And the problem is Joe Biden is doing it with Donald Trump clips and tweets. Donald Trump would have to do it with AOC tweets, with third parties that Biden could separate himself and distance himself from.
Also in that, you're going to have to make another series of, in other words, you're going to have to make two sets of commercials. One is, here's all the crazy ass shit that was said, plus here are all the good things that have occurred under Donald John Trump. You can't let him get in there. You can't let him make it about him, but you do those things simultaneously. Here's what I believe for 2020. The leftists are going, and I am happy about this.
You didn't let me finish.
The leftists are going to win. You didn't want to prognosticate. I'll prognosticate.
Oh, no. I didn't want to prognosticate on Biden because I said there's two scenarios. If Biden is the nominee, I think he'll win. If Biden's not the nominee, if the hard left is the nominee, I think they are going to lose. They are going to fail hard, and I think the Democratic Party is going to be underwater for the next 8 to 12 years.
And
that's my prognostication. But if Biden wins, I think the Democratic Party will save, and I think they'll be able to
like a
to win.
Sociopath.
Sorry,
though,
now I'm done.
Do you think that the left have the capability to center themselves at this point? I don't see it. I don't think they have the ability or the wherewithal or the desire
it's going
to moderate themselves.
They don't publicly. It's going to come down to the electorate.
They're alcoholics.
If the electorate is able to silence that group, if the electorate is able to get Joe Biden as the nominee, then I think that the party, and I'm not a Democrat, obviously, I think the party can be saved. But here's the thing. Who's running the Democratic Party? Ellison. You have, right? You have hard left people.
4 or 5 people right now are running the Democrat Party.
I'm talking the DNC. Ellison.
Oh, okay, all right.
Right? Ellison, that guy's a freaking winner, right? You have hard left people running the DOC. Do you remember several years ago when they wanted to vote God out of their...
Ellison is not the chair.
No, he's not the chair, but isn't he the number 2?
Yeah, he's the co.
But he's the co-chair, right?
God, what's that guy's name? I can't think of the guy's... Michael... Anyway,
I don't know.
No, I know what you're saying.
But Ellison's in power there.
But he's in there.
So that's who's running that. And remember, this is the same DNC that pushed Bernie out even when he should have had it. And they went with Hillary, who they thought was more moderate. So now the DNC may push Biden out. He's older, and they have younger socialists in there that they think are energizing their bases. Do you remember when the DNC attempted to take God out of their official what things they believe, or out of their official tenets? And then they took such heat with it nationwide that at the DNC they brought it to a vote on the floor. And they said, vocal vote, who wants to reinsert God? And people yelled no. It clearly didn't pass. But the DNC realized that it was such an issue for them. They said, okay, it passes by. And people were like, what the hell? They went, do you remember this?
No, I don't.
Oh, my gosh, it was a big deal. The DNC added God back in, clearly against the
want of the
people that were present. Yes. And so...
God, that brings up so many questions. By the way, I was wrong completely again. The guy's name is Tom Perez, not
Tom Perez.
Mike.
Whatever. I don't know. And I don't care.
We have 5 minutes.
But my point is, I don't even know if the electorate will be able to save Biden.
here's...
But Biden does scare me for 2020.
I'm not that terribly concerned. I don't think we're going to even get to Biden. I think the leftists are like alcoholics. They can't help themselves. They're going to go full on, hard tack, massive hardaport. They can't help themselves. We didn't get to a fraction of the stories that we wanted to talk to.
No, but we
today,
got to some good stuff.
But we did get to some great stuff. Let me throw this out here, and this is not one of the tabs or one of the things that you and I had discussed prior to the show.
Okay.
But I would like your input on this. To date, 11 states have managed to supplant the U.S. Constitution. How far will this go? BZ, what are you saying? I'm saying this. 11 states have already drawn resolutions to indicate that in terms of the Electoral College, whoever wins the popular vote is to whom they're going to throw all their votes for the electors in the Electoral College. So they've essentially decided under the 10th Amendment that we're not going to adhere to the Electoral College. We're going to craft, warp it, and reset our individual states' goalposts for this to make sure that we get elected in perpetuity.
Yes.
I wanted to have Professor Michael Jones on here to address the constitutionality of it. He wasn't feeling good, so I was not able to get to someone with a professional view of that. But the only reason for that existing and for them wanting to have 16-year-olds vote and approximately, let's see, what is it? Now in
Colorado,
Florida, they're going to be up to 300,000 or 400,000 felons that are going to be available for voting because they allowed felons to vote, times the number of states that have done that as well. But of those 11 states, like you said, the most recent one being Colorado, that said that here's how we're going to handle the Electoral College.
Yeah. Look, I think that it's clear that the Democrats are trying to move the goalposts because they want to maintain power. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
Look, California just had the thing where they had how many people improperly registered to vote. The Democrats refused a resolution to condemn illegal immigrants from voting in our elections. That came up this week or last week. I don't remember. But there was an article about that. Yeah, they want the younger vote because they want to maintain power. Trump scares the shit out of them. They're moving the goalposts. They're going to try and make it a one-party country. Period.
Forever.
Forever. Kind of like like what's happened to California. They saw it worked here in California. They want it to happen to the rest of the nation.
It is working in California.
So depending what they do, I think those states need to be challenged in federal court. Should be overturned at the Supreme Court level. We'll see if it works or not. I know we have a couple minutes left, but but did you see the study that came out in February that NASA did that says, and I hope AOC saw this, but I don't think she did. Do you know that the Earth is greener today than it was 20 years ago, thanks to human activity? Did you see this report?
Whoa.
Did you see this report?
Whoa. I'm going to have to go look with that.
You should look up. And the report came from probably a source that they will find that is not credible, but it came from NASA. And what NASA said, this report was published on February 11th, but they found that the greening of the Earth over the last 20 years has increased overall by 5%. Due to human activity. That human activity is the replanting of forests as we clear and so forth. So as a direct result of humans, not environmentalists, but as a direct result of humans and doing the replanting that they do, we're greener now. Did you find it?
Yes, I did. And to remind me, I'm putting this.
Oh, you want to talk about this on your show, don't you?
On Twitter. Here's a little secret, folks.
How do you think the environmentalists did that? Notice they were silent.
Yeah, I know. And the funny thing is, they said that was because of India and China.
Yes.
Who are consecutively at the same time, they are two of the world's worst polluters as well.
Yep. The two countries, they account for 1/3 of the greening.
See, I'm going to reveal something. my Twitter feed basically serves these days as nothing more than a reminder of what stories I want to do on my show.
So you found it?
Yeah, I did. And thank you for that. Greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, right at the buzzer, too.
Yeah. Well, okay, first question. How does it look like for next week for you?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good coming up in May. I will be going to Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then I will be in Alabama the week after that. But if I can swing it, I would like to call in and do a chat show from D.C. I wonder if I could do it from the National Mall.
Ooh.
How cool would that be?
You know what? If we can somehow swing the technology, how cool would it be for you to video in?
I'll FaceTime on my phone.
From the National Mall.
Yes.
And somehow we can kind of figure out how to attach all of this stuff together. Now that would be pretty cool.
That would be cool.
That would definitely be pretty cool. Well,
I'll have to do a special report from D.C.
Oh, right.
The first D.C. correspondent.
Here's what here. Well, I've got it right here. Here's your intro.
This is an SHR Media Network special report.
Yes.
And then there you would go. Then we'd introduce Heads CLINT.
Yeah, I'd probably be drunk, but that's okay.
But wouldn't that be entertaining as hell?
Yes.
Of course, it would be entertaining as hell. Obviously.
So any of our right coast listeners that might be out in D.C.
Yeah, you could visit a ton of people because
grab a drink.
Most of the people listen from the East Coast.
Let's grab a drink.
This was a great show. We didn't get to a fraction of our topics.
Well, we got to a fraction. It was a small fraction.
It was a small fraction.
But it was a fraction.
So, folks, thanks for listening tonight. We'll be back next week. This is Heads BZ and Heads CLINT. We are the Heads Against Tyranny. This is a true chat show with a chat room. And thanks to everybody that was in the chat room tonight. Mike, Iggy Mom, Alaskan, Kaiser. Of course, Alaskan says DC is full of chat.
Well, they took my keyboard away, so I was unable to interact on chat roll.
And Kaiser says, hey, chatting in DC.
Oh, yes.
That could be unique.
That's a popular thing from what I hear.
It is. Folks, bye-bye.
Good night.